Hey, how about them tops, son?
All day, SEC boys. SEC, they supposed to be SEC. Crazy all day, baby.
You're listening to the RedOut Podcast.
So like a lot of you, I get those annoying phone calls, the Medicare, Medicaid. But the real wake-up call for me was when I ordered 2 computers from Amazon. But I didn't order 2 computers from Amazon, you say. Oh, somebody else did. Yeah, that was a close call for me. I realized that my personal information was out there, and I was vulnerable. But how are so many people able to get a hold of my information? One reason might be irresponsible companies. For example, AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records, both former and existing, were exposed on the dark web. They recommended those affected use strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. That's a lot of work for us to do because one company couldn't keep their data safe. This is why I use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura does all of this for me, and best of all, it's all in one app. If my info was compromised in the AT&T data breach, I wouldn't worry because Aura would already be protecting me. Don't sacrifice your privacy because it's a chore to keep up with it. Aura makes it easy. Aura is always on, doing the hard work of keeping my information safe. I value my privacy, and so should you. You guys should check out Aura. You can go to aura.com/RedOut, or that link is in the description below to start your free trial. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring today's video. And let's get back to that Hilltopper action.
Hello and welcome into another RedOut Podcast, Season 8, guys. We've been going at this for a long time. Started out with no kids, and now I've got one. So we've been going for a while. As always, we got Matt in the podcast. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, man? Go Tops.
And we also have one of them Alabama Roll Tide fans in the RedOut studio today. We've got Dave. How's it going, buddy?
Hey guys, excited to be on with you, talking a little ball.
Yeah, how's it? So I'm going to let you do your little plug real quick with all your stuff, if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Osment, Alabama Football Podcast. We're on the .com version of that, as well as the @gmail.com. I love you guys have been doing it 8 years, and you started with no kids and have kids. This marks our 15th season. And my daughter just turned 14, and so
Nice.
So we're in a very similar boat here. But hey, it's been a lot of fun, sort of following this era of college football, and I love getting on the podcast and talking ball with folks, and so it's a great forum to have an opportunity to do that. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, glad to have you, buddy. It's always a pleasure to kind of reach across the aisle and talk sports, especially when you're talking to the team that is going to thump you pretty good. So, Matt, I know you've got some housekeeping stuff to go into. What do you got, bud?
Yeah, just wanted to update everybody on WK Athletics as well as some towel rack news. Quickly, the towel rack, we have activated it's labeled like a subscription program, but it's not. It's really just if you want to donate, feel free. It helps our efforts and funds everything. There's information on the website. We're also going to have an article that comes out that explains it pretty soon. So happy to take in those donations to help fund this podcast, as well as traveling and the expenses and fees and all that kind of stuff that just kind of come up. So appreciate anything there. But again, Towel Rack is going to be totally free to everybody. There's zero obligation or guilt trip. Just want to be available to everybody, and appreciate everything that everybody does and all the views and likes and subscribes and all that across all of our social media. As far as WKU, not a ton has gone on this summer, a few things, but just wanted to give everybody just a quick update, kind of what's going on the Hill. Some sports have already started, some are about to start. So the first one would be women's soccer. I know that moves the needle, but they are already 2-1 on the year. They had a tie in exhibition and had a win in exhibition. They've just started. No big names that they've played, but they do play number 6 Arkansas on Sunday. So should be interesting to get a real barometer of where they are. No other major out of conference opponents, but they are rolling, and so go check out the ladies at the new soccer complex. They've really updated that, and it looks really beautiful, and glad they finally have their own facility that they can really function well in and be able to recruit to. As far as women's volleyball, for those that don't know, WKU is a really solid volleyball school, been ranked several years in a row, and finished ranked just about every year. They are about to start here on Friday. They start with Morehead State it's called the Bluegrass Battle. It's at UK. So they'll play Morehead State, Northern Kentucky, Kentucky. And then they have they have a really strong schedule this year. Looking at Michigan State, then they host four really, really good teams in Diddle Arena. They host Tennessee, who they played last year in the NCAA tournament. Marquette, Dayton, and Illinois. Those are all at Diddle Arena. That's middle of September. And then they have a few more games. They have the Alyssa Kavanaugh Classic, obviously in memory of the fallen volleyball player who had cancer a few years ago, was a incredible talent, and we miss her, and they honor her with that tournament. And then they get into conference play. So definitely keep your eyes on volleyball. We will definitely know if they're any good here in about a month with all that super tough schedule. So let's see if they stay in the polls or if they drop out for a little bit and hopefully come back. Also, men's basketball announced their schedule a few weeks ago. Really nice non-conference schedule. It's been a while since we've had such a strong schedule. Wichita State in Bowling Green. Grand Canyon is a solid mid-major program going there. And then we have Campbellsville. That should be a rollover. We have Lipscomb and Diddle. It's kind of a local-ish regional type of battle. Jackson State, we play Kentucky at Rupp. Should be interesting there. They brought back the Marshall series. And then we play Evansville. We've always had trouble at Evansville, so that'll be interesting. Then Tennessee State, Murray State, Seattle, which is probably off the radar, but actually a pretty good program right now. And then Kentucky Wesleyan. And perhaps the biggest one besides Kentucky would be at Michigan in late December. And then we start conference play. So really strong schedule there in basketball. Excited to see how they do. Women's basketball has actually not really announced their full schedule on the website. I believe they're very close to that, and we'll update you when that comes. But they have announced the Conference USA schedule, so we'll update you as that comes along. So, but we're not here today to really talk, women's soccer or anything. No offense to the ladies on the soccer pitch. We're here to talk about football. We're excited to start the season. So, Dave, it's exciting to have you in. We really want to learn about Alabama from your perspective, and so we're going to start with WKU. And any comments, feel free to chime in. Anything that you've seen or whatever, but let's get it going. So I think the big thing, and sorry I cut you off. I think the big thing for us is there was a quote quarterback battle for Western, and I really didn't see it. I mean, for Western anyway, you got TJ Finley who's coming in. He's a little bit upperclassman to Caden Veltkamp. And even though Veltkamp had a great bowl game, he's just not got the experience that Finley does. And there was a battle to see who won. I think it was always Finley's job to lose. And he's actually am I mistaken that he's played Alabama? Yeah, he played and Dave, you can let us know for sure, but it was I know he was at Auburn and at LSU.
Yeah, he's the Rasputin of Alabama opponent quarterbacks. He keeps popping up in these different places, and we have to play him again. So we played him at when he was at LSU, and then at Auburn a couple of years ago. We didn't play Texas State last year, but I think one of our new coaches saw him in action there. So I think our defensive coordinator Kane Womack when he was at University of South Alabama. So I think this will be our fourth year in a row that someone representing our program has played against TJ. So that'll be an interesting part of the matchup on Saturday.
For sure. Yeah. I don't think it was, I think you had your local people who were upset, and we've talked about that a few times on the podcast. So we don't need to beat a dead horse, but um, I have heard that Caden may actually see the field a little bit, maybe in kind of like a wildcat type of, excuse me, I almost say wildcat, wild topper type of formation, maybe kind of red zone or short yardage type of thing, to kind of give him some reps. And I've also heard this, it was closer than maybe you would think. But it definitely was, I think, TJ's job to lose. So, as far as the running backs and everything, you have Elijah Young, and LT Sanders, and then you have some other potential guys there. We'll see. Elijah Young has been on some watch lists and everything. Um, Wide receiver, Western loses Malachi Corley as the most major news, but there were some other losses as well, a couple minor transfers. But you do return Dalvin Smith, Easton Messer. Yeah, Michael Matheson should be back from injury, as far as I know. As I've heard that he's and seen videos of him doing stuff, so he should be fine. And tight end as well. River Helms and Trevor Borland should be a pretty good unit. I think there's a couple other good guys behind them as well. So, Dave, I guess a question for you. We know Alabama's obviously any question we ask. Of course, Alabama could just blow WKU out, and that's obviously possible. But if it was close at any point, let's try to answer it that way. In case WKU can put up a fight, just thinking about kind of anticipated strengths and weaknesses from Alabama, and the guys that would go up against the kind of the skill positions on offense for WKU. Is there anything you kind of see as a matchup, maybe to watch, or somewhere that either side could exploit?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of watch items there. Anytime you bring in a new coach and new coaching staff, and it's sort of a change of philosophy, saving a defensive minded coach to more offensive minded, running a brand new system. There's a lot of questions. What are we going to see? Jalen Milroe looked really good in spots last season. But it took him a couple of weeks to really sort of get into a groove. I think it was about 2/3 of the way through the season. For me, it was the Tennessee game where he really found a rhythm. If he comes in this season and sort of picks up at that point, then the game and the early part of the Alabama season certainly looks one way. If he comes in and sort of has to get back to that position, he could potentially come in and struggle and throw some interceptions. He is prone to do that. He'll take sacks when maybe he shouldn't, when his athletic ability suggests that he should just tuck the ball and run. He will take some sacks. And so if he gets into that type of situation, we get in some 3rd and longs and then a big sack, turn the ball over, shorten the game in that regard, throw a pick here and there. I think that can stymie the Alabama offense. And then the secondary, which this may be the matchup of the game. The Alabama secondary lost 6 cornerbacks from last year's squad, 4 in the portal, and 2 to the NFL, and then lost two safeties. So what's an 8 secondary players that were, that played significant time. And so when we look at the Alabama secondary, there's one guy returning, Malachi Moore, at a safety position that has Alabama snaps. He'll be a 5th year. And then we've got a couple of transfers coming in that supposed to be pretty good, ranked really high and performing well in practice. But we also have some true freshmen that may get some meaningful snaps in the secondary. And so that's a matchup, the offense that Western Kentucky brings to the table against a secondary that's, maybe still getting their legs under them. I think if those two things, they can conspire to make this game closer than what Vegas thinks it is.
Yeah, speaking of Vegas, Western is sitting at, I should say Alabama's at a minus 31.5. So they're predicting a 31-point game, over under 59. Money line for Alabama is minus 10,000. So Western is actually sitting at a plus 3,000. So essentially, if you bet $100, you get 3,000. honestly, I told Matt prior to you coming on, Dave, I would be willing to put $10 on this game just for the $300 payout if it's a possibility. Now, ESPN and everybody else is saying Western has a let me see. The intern that filled this out said Western has a 2.6% chance of winning. So there is a chance. They're telling me
well
there's
over
a chance.
2%. It's usually like 0.9 in these matchups.
But I think Western has some strengths. Obviously, Alabama has a lot more strength being Division I school, and an SEC school at that. But Western does have like 5 offensive linemen that are seniors returning. And I mean, we've got some wide receivers returning. We've got Dalvin Smith, who's going to be, like Matt said, he's going to be a big star for us this year. But against a team like Alabama, even though you all have lost a lot of DBs, we're going to be experiencing, probably double coverage on him, or at least in that my expectation. With him being such a big target. Now, who Finley wants to pick out during the game is his business and his choices and decisions. But, I don't know if he's going to be a player who's going to have a favorite like we've seen quarterbacks have in the past, or if he's going to be more spread out like sorry, I was thinking of the Saints offense back in the day. I hated playing them in fantasy because you never started their quarterback or their receivers because they'd spread it out too much. But Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think the receivers and DBs, that matchup is interesting because both units are kind of a mystery on both sides. I think obviously Alabama, with all those losses, you never know. Changing coaching, maybe changing up the schemes, maybe with an offensive minded coach, there may be more weakness on the defense in general. Who knows exactly what goes on there? And also the receivers, Michael Matheson was injured all last year. So who knows, is he the explosive receiver that we saw a couple years ago, or is he kind of hobbled? Does he get re-injured? Those are huge factors. As well as, does Dalvin Smith, Easton Messer, and other guys take the next step to actually produce like we would need them to produce both versus Alabama and in general in the season? Who knows? So it's a really interesting matchup because I don't think anybody knows anything until we get on the field and just see what happens. But both units could be really good. Both could be pretty average.
Yeah, Dave, I usually try to have some infographics that are I post during the episode, but being the first game of the season and y'all got a new coach and everything, it's one of those where there's just a toss up for us. We just don't know what to expect. And I mean, it sounds bad, but y'all really don't know what to expect from us. Except
no, that's fair. That's true.
Go ahead, Matt.
Devin, you touched on the offensive line a little bit, and I think that's an interesting. The trenches are obviously important, especially in a Power 5 versus G5 type of game. The WKU offensive line should be pretty good. We think they should be solid. The Alabama offensive line was, can we say, atrocious last year? I mean, nearly 50 sacks. I was curious if that was more Milroe or if that was the O-line itself or whatever. And then the defensive lines, I think you lost a couple guys that had double-digit sacks, right, from last year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We lost. We played last year. We walked up not to get sort of down a rabbit hole, but we played walk-up linebackers, and so it looked like defensive end. They were technically linebacker, but yes, we lost a lot of sack production coming from those edge positions, and then Justin Boybe he was a true sort of defensive end, but he was a very active, very busy player, and we've lost the Alabama defense has lost a lot of production in the sort of attacking the quarterback and bringing them to the ground behind the line of scrimmage. So those would be question marks across the defensive front.
Gotcha. And the offensive line, do you feel better about? I think you brought in the Washington center, right? I think is.
Yeah. We brought in Parker Brailsford from Washington. I'm excited about the offensive line. There were a number of sacks last year. I think I saw. And it, the part of me says it has to be a misprint, and part of me still aches for every one of them. But I saw where Milroe had 44. He was sacked 44 times I don't know how he was walking by the end of the season, sacked,
No
that many
kidding.
times. I think, it's sort of a mixed bag. We had a lot of bad snaps last year, and the center transferred to Ohio State, and so we certainly wish him well. But I think it created sort of a toxic situation. I think he needed to go, for those reasons. Good kid, but I think that contributed. I think Milrow he so wants to be viewed as a passing quarterback that
Mhm.
when he had the opportunities to run, all his career, he's been told change positions, because he's that level of athletically dynamic. And I think he said, I'm going to be a quarterback. And so I think that there have been moments when he wouldn't run because he wanted to find the receiver. And at last year, especially at his point in his development, he just needed to run the ball. He didn't need to try to find the receivers. And this year, and then last year as the season progressed, but this year, maybe it's a little different. But he a lot of those sacks are his fault. Of course, the line struggled some. We started a true freshman at left tackle, and so there were certainly some moments there. Interestingly enough, Caden Proctor, that young man, he transferred to Iowa and then transferred back to Alabama, and we're glad to have him back. He's going to be better as a sophomore than he was as a freshman. He's dropped about 30 pounds, and so he's going to be more nimble on his feet. I love our guards, Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts. I think are maybe two of the best, maybe the best guard combo in the country. And in the competition has been at the right tackle position. Is it going to be Wilkin Formby or Elijah Pritchett? My money's on Formby. He's going to be a hard one to unseat when he's in there. And I'll say this about Brailsford: there's something that the coaching staff loves about him. He did not. He transferred, but did not fully participate in spring drills. And the coaching staff said, "Don't worry about it. He's going to be okay." And here he is, our starting center. So my guess is they know something that we don't know as Alabama fans, and that he's going to be pretty solid. I'm looking forward to stout play across the offensive front this year.
Good deal.
Is-
Yeah,
as
Go ahead.
a fan base, is Alabama okay? Are you all okay now?
Well,
I mean, I know there's been a period of mourning for you all, so
Yep.
I didn't know how that was going for you all. Or
no, I think no, it's true. January 10th hit hard, and when that sort of landed, there was it sent me in a little bit of a tailspin. But it's also something we knew was coming, right? When Saban came down,
Yeah.
all the pundits said that he's going to be there 2 or 3 years and he's going to leave, and they kept saying he's going to leave, and it eventually becomes one of those situations, where a stop clock is right twice a day. If you say long enough that he's going to leave one day, you'll be right. And so it took 17 years, but eventually those folks were right. And he was 71, 72, and the biggest thing that I'll share with you guys, and we've talked about it some with our group, he was reaching a point where he wasn't having a hard time competing. He wasn't having a hard time coaching, and the new NIL and transfer portal, he didn't like it, but he could adapt to it. His career was about adapting. What he struggled with the most is maintaining a top flight coaching staff. Coaches would come in and say, "Hey, can you guarantee me, 3 or 4 or 5 years before you retire? I've got kids starting high school. I can't, this is not a 1-year gig for me." And more, he had a hard time retaining a top flight staff. And that's why there were some recycles over the last couple of staffs. And the day that he quit, what's funny is, and another sort of expression I use is, he pulled a Forrest Gump. He just said, "I'm going to go run." And then one day he just stopped running. And so, like, the day that he retired, he was 15 minutes from a team meeting. He had interviewed a wide receiver coach that morning, and he called his wife, Miss Terry, and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "I'm about to go into this meeting, and I've got 2 messages that I can give." And they talked for a couple minutes, and he went in and told the team that he was stepping back. So that was, you knew it was going to come, and it did. And it was, as an Alabama fan, it's going to come, but you don't want it to come right now. And there it is. We're super excited about Kalen DeBoer and the energy, and I love the coaching staff. And it's always, Saban's awesome, and now we're on to a new chapter in this new era of football. I love the fact that we have an offensive-minded coach, and I think Alabama fans overall are excited, and certainly football coming back is good news too.
Yeah,
Is
I
there
mean,
any?
I would go ahead, Matt.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, man. Is there any like skepticism as far as like him coming from a different region of the country and all that? I feel like
And
sometimes a
carpetbaggers
recruiting
from
perspective.
Washington.
Maybe a little bit. You're always going to get some of that. Auburn's real big on that. They're calling him the Husky Parson. About their coach, and I think there's been a lot of successful coaches. Urban Meyers is one. There's quite a number that have come into the South and had success. Saban before,
True.
to LSU wasn't necessarily from the region. We don't claim West Virginia, so we don't.
Nobody does.
Yeah, no one does it. So you could reason that he wasn't, from the region. He came from Michigan State and had great success at LSU.
Right.
So, you can kind of look at it and say, well, but hey, in the South, we're nice people. And if you come in and you're nice people, then we're going to get along just fine. And I think that's what DeBoer is. I think he's going to, he's got to establish and build the relationships. I mean, Saban could walk in any high school in the country and certainly in the South. And DeBoer needs to build that. He doesn't know the people yet. And so he's building to that. I think we're going to have success in that area. And I think DeBoer will overcome all that. I think right now Auburn's sort of winning the recruiting battle in the state of Alabama, which, they're saying that's an evidence that DeBoer can't coach. Well, Auburn has won recruiting in the state of Alabama more years than not, while Saban was the head coach. And so I don't take that as a sign of anything. And when your opponents are sort of propagating that position, I can kind of live with that.
And so DeBoer does not have the rapport, is what you're saying.
There you go. You're waiting on that one. Not yet.
I was
he's
waiting.
working on it.
Yep.
He's getting there. And a year from now, I think that'll be. I like your joke, but a year from now, that position, that people taking that stance will be laughable.
Well, and I mean, honestly, I think this first year is going to dictate next year.
Yeah.
Any coach it does. He starts having success. He can say, okay, we get you in here. You can help us do this. We can get you starting and yada, yada, yada. Whereas if he has a bad year, which Alabama football and UK basketball are kind of inverses of each other. If a bad year for UK is a good year for Western, so to speak, for us to make the tournament at Western is a great year for us in basketball. Whereas, if Bama makes, a non-New Year's Six bowl, y'all are going to burn the place down. I mean,
we'll try to have some restraint
some fans
this
are,
year, but
some fans are, some fans expect it every year.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that the more success he has, the better he does. Nick Saban, like you said, he was there 17 years. There's probably freshmen who are a year old when he started coaching at Alabama, which blows me away.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
me too.
But, some kids, that's all they've known is Nick Saban in Alabama. So when you've got a new coach coming in, it's going to change the recruiting that first year he's there. Mm-hmm. Yes, he has the Alabama name, but he's got to back it up with tradition like Alabama has. Yeah. So, Matt, I know you've got a whole script to read off. So
come on. Whatever, man. It's fine. This is good. I mean, I guess what you said brought up some questions. Preseason number 5, do you feel like that's realistic? Do you feel like that's overshooting it? Is it
undershooting it?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Is it another national championship? What are we looking at here for Alabama West?
I was having that exact question that came up, and I was talking to someone about it. And he just said, "Stop talking with your first world problems," because I look at it and I'm like, number 5, that's the right spot for us this year. And I think he is a Notre Dame guy, and he's like, 5 would be the pinnacle, right? And so we're sitting, and I'm like, Georgia's a good team. I think I would put them or Ohio State 1. I think that's fair. So we're not 3. Oregon, I think, is right there, and I give a lot of credit to Texas. And so those are all stacked teams, and you think, yeah, I kind of like us sitting at 5. I think that's fair. And the feedback is, jump in a lake because. Because a lot of teams will be happy at 5, and we almost feel like, that feels about right this season, given the level of unknown. So I don't know. I'm not trying to be that way in answering the question, but it is kind of a funny question. I think it's right. I do think it's right. And I don't mean anything more or less than that.
No, I mean, preseason polls are useless, and they're a good gauge of where you are because
Yeah.
you don't know. Especially you got a new coach, you've got new players coming in certain spots, where some may be really advantageous in this spot. They may get moved in the season, they may get injured. You just don't know. And normally, like, the national champion always gets pushed to number one.
Yeah.
And I mean, the good thing for Alabama, at least, is that your coach went to the national title, games, or the playoff there. Whereas, like, a team like, at least for us, we had Willie Taggart, who famously went to three teams in 1 year, with South Florida, then to Oregon, and then to Florida State.
Yeah.
And then that backfired for him. I don't think that's going to be the same for DeBoer. With his experience being able to get that team to the national title playoff games. But I mean, that's just my opinion, at least. I think he'll do okay, at least on Yoel's end. But Matt, what do you got?
Oh, nothing else. No.
He's like,
good job.
Sorry.
Do you feel like there's a floor to the ceiling? Like, is it definitely still going to be a top 10, 15 kind of team, even if things kind of fall off, the rails, get off the rails, so to speak? Or do you think, is there upward trajectory? Where do you stand there?
Yeah, I think, I predict that this Alabama squad can be a 10-win, and so I'm kind of 9-3, 10-2,
Okay.
and I don't want to out loud, say 11-1, because you start looking at the schedule but
Brutal.
it's not, it's not unreasonable. But when you start saying things go off the rails, that can mean a lot of different things. You lose your quarterback, or you have sort of a lot of injuries at a single position. And so, we could lose more than three. I wouldn't, it would have to be some sort of cluster injury event in the quarterback position, or, the running back position, or across the offensive line. I think for us to drop, more than 4 games. So it's hard to predict that. So I'm not going to. I think 9-3 is sort of where I would put our floor, all things being equal, injury wise. I think 10-2 is feasible, and then 10-2 would get us into the playoff. I know it's expanded 12, so more teams get in, and whatnot. Everyone, I think some of the backlash on the expanded playoffs is, damn it, we can't keep Alabama out of this thing. And you can't expand it to keep Alabama out, right? All you do is make it easier I pick on Alabama because that's who we are, but teams that don't want to see Ohio State in it and don't want to see someone else, then expanding it doesn't help that. So I think a 10-2 Alabama team gets in, whether we're in the SEC championship game or not. 9-3 is sort of on the edge, but depending upon how the winds are blowing in the season, 9-3 could get us in too. So I think that's where a lot of Alabama fans are sort of going into the season. Kind of that's where the headspace is.
Yeah, that's perfect. The reason I asked that was, from a WKU perspective, the fans are trying to see, like, is there an inroad where we could possibly hang around or have it be closer or whatever. And I just look at the matchup and I take a little bit of an issue with it being that close. I think you got an experienced quarterback. You have an O-line that should be much improved. You did lose some people on defense, but you have some pieces back and whatever. And then you have a coach that, he's taken over, he's new, but he also was just in the college football playoff himself.
Yeah.
So, I don't see a great matchup. Like, sometimes, I said this on your podcast, the matchup with LSU in 2015 for us, as an upset type of thought. I thought we legitimately had a chance to hang around and maybe even beat them because their offense was inferior and ours was capable of putting up some points. And then there came a freaking hurricane where there was a river flowing down onto the field. It was like 2 feet deep.
Yep.
And so that kind of ruined the chances there. But this matchup, I feel like some of the same issues are in the same position groups, and it just kind of, I don't think it lends itself to that, but we'll see.
Got to
So
play
I
the
will
game.
say,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, Dave,
Yeah.
but I don't mind. I don't mind to interrupt Matt, but I don't want to interrupt. But I will say it is a lot cheaper to be a Western fan, at least to go to some of these games. I just randomly pulled up ESPN schedules, and Western, it's I think the most expensive game to get. Of course, they got the little tickets as low as the most expensive one for Western is $23, and that's against Alabama. Okay. Alabama's, of course, most expensive one for Alabama is versus Tennessee at Tennessee. Tickets as low as $294. It was like, good gosh, man. And of course, there's others on here too. Georgia's a $251 game, and like the lowest one is Alabama versus Mercer, which is an $11. Tickets as low as $11.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just blows me away. Just how I go. Sorry. Yes.
No,
Dave,
you're exactly right.
ADD, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, the tickets, tickets can get up there, and that's true. I had a buddy, and I repeat this. Obviously, I'm going to now, but I had a buddy that he used to say, you know what, people ask like, oh, you get the season tickets, and like, oh, how can you afford to do that, and da 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 da, and his answer was like, it's my hobby. I don't golf. I don't go camping. I don't
That's
go
right, yeah.
fishing. I don't have a tackle box full of, lures and stuff. I go to Alabama games. That's my hobby. And in that context, it's like, well, we're all going to spend our money on something. And
That's right. That's
and
right.
so if you
Roll
if you don't
Tide.
have if you don't have a garage full of rod and reels and tackle equipment and
Big
or
old
golf
boat, yeah.
clubs or whatever it is, and you elect to go to the Alabama games, then maybe it's a wash. I don't know, but
Well, hey, I mean, it's like anything else. If you enjoy doing something, more power to you.
Yeah.
But there's times
But
where
damn.
yeah. There's going to be times where you go to the game and you may only stay 3/4 because it's a 72-0 game. And you're just like, I don't know if I necessarily need to finish this one or not. But
Let's go fishing.
Yeah, let's go play some golf. Forget this. But I mean, and Alabama also has that history. I mean, they've got that museum right next to the field. So if you're a visitor going to watch an Alabama football game, go early and go to that museum.
it's a fun time.
That was one thing I
Yeah,
wish I'd
it's
gotten
cool.
to see when I was with Western, was when we played. I did not have the chance to go and see the museum. Did get to go into the locker rooms, which were amazing.
Yeah, nice.
And of course, I can never say enough about how awesome Alabama's facilities were. I will say they are probably one of the better older stadiums in the SEC, whereas somewhere like Florida is garbage. And there's a reason it's called the Swamp. I'm just saying. Not a big fan.
They have done. I'm not sure exactly, when you were last there, but they've done some significant expansion.
1974.
No, it was 18 years ago.
18.
That's,
Oh, wow. Okay.
18 years ago. I was there in 2000. It was the
2010.
No, I'm sorry. No, it was 2007 when I was at Florida. So it would have been 17 years ago.
Okay. You might not recognize the place now. We've closed off both end zones, and on sort of the north side end zone, or the north side of the stadium, built all sorts of press conferences and or sort of meeting halls, press conference room, media center, hangout places for the recruits. You can go get married and have a reception in the part of the state. It's like this whole convention center added to the end of the stadium, and they moved a couple fraternity houses, and now it's like this whole plaza, an entrance on the front of the stadium. And then Saban got tired of the buses would pull up and the players would come in, get off the bus and they go up the stairs, and then have to queue for an elevator to go down into the locker room. Saban got tired of that. He had them tunnel under the stadium so they could get off of the bus and walk straight down a hallway into into the locker room. And then they made that sort of a big production because it's got LED screens all down the side.
Oh,
They can make it look like a sort of a discotheque or something. But and then now it's, all the recruiting videos show that. It is truly amazing. If you do have a chance to get back and take the tour and see all of it,
yes.
it is amazing. And from 2007, again, we've expanded one of the whole concourses. The media room, press boxes are all new and different. The other side of the stadium. I kid, you would recognize the stadium, but you might not recognize the
Oh,
stadium.
hell. No, well, I was at Florida in 2007. 2008 was our Alabama game that year.
Okay.
But that just goes to show you how big of a person Nick Saban was at Alabama, to just be able to say, all right, guys, we're going to tunnel through the stadium or go under or whatever, and we're going to build this so that the players don't have to walk up and down and around.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. Yeah. If Tyson Helton tried to do that at Western, they'd just be like, okay, yeah, all right, whatever.
Saban said it, and somebody said, "Bring me my shovel. Let's go do it."
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure Nick Saban could have gone to any community center in Alabama and been like, I need y'all to help me dig a tunnel. And they'd have all grabbed their shovels and walked over and started helping. Because Nick Saban,
every parolee in
probably,
the state in an orange jumpsuit would be digging.
Well, he's more popular than the governor, I'm going to say. And this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to say more people in Alabama knew Nick Saban over the governor at certain times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think there's people in Eastern Kentucky, I want to make fun of them for a second, who don't know who our governor is, much less who coaches at UK or whatever.
Right.
It's one of my fun experiences at Alabama was they had the bomb sniffing dog, which was a Labrador Retriever, and he came through the locker rooms. Of course, all the girls that I worked with, and the girls that worked with Matt and the managers, they all flocked to the dog, and I'm like, what's he do? Is he like a drug sniffing? And they're like, no, this is a bomb sniffing dog. I said, well, how does he react? And they're like, you'll know if he reacts. And I'm like, okay, all right then, cool. But yeah, it was an awesome time. I mean, I remember the student section all wearing like suits or business dress for the game, and it was just like, this is wild. Our
fraternity
students
section
got drunk. So
yeah, fraternity section gets they get dressed up. They sort of relax some of that a little bit, but they would get dressed up, the sports coats and the sundresses and whatnot. They would get drunk too, but they would just have a dapper look about it.
Yeah, and I think that's Western's problem, honestly, is to get the students to stop tailgating, to come into the stadium, and then they usually get there about the second quarter and they leave by the third quarter. So it's like, come on, dude, stay.
Yeah.
Devin, you were talking about the bomb dog and stuff. It reminded me of you remember Andrew Jackson?
Yes, how could I forget him?
So there was this linebacker. He's this real intense guy or whatever. One of those like meatheads, like I just play football, and so we're playing UK in the Titans stadium. So of course it's NFL stadium. They got tight security, all that kind of stuff. And so they told us like they have to inspect every bag and all that stuff. So as equipment, we had like all the shoulder pads and all their stuff, and each player had a bag and all that kind of thing, all the trunks, whatever. And so they had to inspect all this. Well, Andrew Jackson, he during practice he would say stuff like, I'll shoot you, man, I'll kill you, all this stuff. Like he was kind of crazy. Well, he comes up to you remember Kevin Fuhrer, right, Devin?
Yeah.
Of course you know Kevin. Yeah.
Yes.
So Kevin was the assistant equipment manager, and Kevin is kind of a goofy guy or whatever. He was like, hey, Drew, whatever. And Drew comes up, he goes, hey, Kev, be careful. I got a Glock in my bag. Like, he has a gun.
Yes, but you just go,
we're going to the Titan security, and he's saying like, hey, there's a loaded gun in my bag. Be careful.
The bad thing with him is you don't know if he was full of it or if he was serious, because you're just like,
Kevin
dumb
was
enough to do this.
Still terrified. He didn't check it. He's like, I'm not opening that bag.
No. Sorry, Dave. We're just reminiscent here.
Oh no, it's fun story.
Andrew Jackson reminded me of a defensive lineman we had. His name was Robert Dark. Robert Dark wasn't a intelligent person. He wasn't a book smart person, but I think he was always a business smart person, and it didn't translate well. This was the person who could do like a Van Wilder party, and he knew how much everything cost, and he could negotiate to get porta potties brought to his party and limos. And you're just like, I had to drive him. I somehow got looped into driving him after he got hurt from his apartment to campus. Literally when he got hurt, and I was like, he's like, hey, I need a ride to campus, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I come through early, I probably won't be able to pick you up. And he's like, well, what time do you come through? And I'm like, crap. Well, it's like 8:00. And he's like, I'll be ready for you. And I'm like, damn it. Okay. So I ended up getting looped into it for like 6 to 8 weeks, driving him to campus. And then he just kind of figured out his own way to get to wherever he needed from there. But like in those drives, he would talk to people. He'd get on the phones and he's like, well, we're having a party Friday. And he's like, I need a porta potty. And he'd get like 3 or 4 porta potties brought out. This guy, there was a lot of rumors surrounding him, because it was rumored that he was the godchild of Maya Angelou, was one story. Yeah, Matt's going to love that, because it's just like, who is what? And then the other one was that he got hit by a UPS truck and he got a settlement out of it. So that's where he got his money from. That's the one that I always believed more, because he always seemed like he was always concussed when you talk to him. But to go to my point, Robert Dark always reminded me of like in biology, there's this theory that bacteria, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they divide. That's what I think Andrew Jackson came from. He just became like Robert Dark 2.0, because that's the same kind of person. And it was just like, wow.
He was a beast.
Yeah, there's a lot of he was a beast. He almost got into a fight against a player at Ball State. And this was the first time when I was on the sideline realizing the strength difference between me as a normal person and Robert Dark. I'm not saying football players. I'm just saying Robert Dark, because I swear to God, he was on steroids. The offensive line coach, he came off the sidelines and he's yelling at one of the players on the other team, and he's trying to get this guy to fight him. And the offensive line coach at the time, Walt Wells, he came and he was standing there and he's like, get his ass back. And I was like, hey, Dark, come on, man. Let's go, back up. And he just kept walking through me. Just and I'm like, I can't do anything. And luckily, one of the other players, Greg Ryan, he's an offensive lineman, he stopped him, and he was just like, and then he just kind of walked him back. And it was like, I'm just like in between these two elephant humans, essentially. And I'm just like, okay, don't y'all start fighting, because I'm going to get stumped over here. But yeah, it's just amazing to see how strong some of these players can be. Actually, sorry, I got another story real quick. We have a defensive lineman, two guys. One of them's name is Kenny Martin, and the other one's Jamarcus Allen, who played back in the day.
Where's it going?
We were playing. Oh, it was a big game. I can't remember who it was. It was an SEC school, but between snaps, they would play rock paper scissors with the offensive line. So they'd be up there at the line, and they'd be like, yeah, all right. And then they'd go to the play or whatever. But it was just so funny to hear that story after the fact. It was like, oh my gosh. But sorry, Matt, get back to your script, buddy.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I love those guys. Probably the funniest thing I ever saw was Jamarcus Allen returning a pick six in slow motion.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Yeah, Dave. Jamarcus was a defensive lineman, so I love the big guy big guy interceptions. Those are always my favorites.
Yeah. So I had a couple more like position questions. We kind of got a little bit off track there. I wanted to ask about receiver and running back. Those two. What are your thoughts on Alabama's prospects there, both positions?
Love the running back room. I think Alabama has a couple of guys that are poised to really really jump out this season. Justice Haynes is a sophomore that he has all the talent. He's one of the guys that I thought was going to transfer, and I'm glad that he hung around. He's incredibly talented, very dynamic. And then Jam Miller, Jamarian Miller, call him Jam Miller. He's a guy since his redshirt freshman year. We've been saying on the podcast, or I've been saying on the podcast, like, we got to celebrate this guy. We need him not to leave because he's gonna be a star one day. And back when he was, a redshirt freshman, he would play late in games and only get a few snaps, and everybody in the stadium knew that he was going to get the ball, and he could still bust off, 10 and 12 and 15-yard runs against an opponent just stacked, and he just looked so good doing it. And last season, he really was played a lot more in the rotation and really shown out multiple times. So I think Justice Hayes and Jam Miller are going to be, running back 1 and 2 or 1/A/B, however you want to do it. And then Richard Young is a redshirt freshman. He had the best run. He had the best singular running play in spring practice. I think he's incredibly athletic too. Some media outlets are calling it a 3-headed monster. I think it's a 2-headed monster with a really good third running back. I'm hoping the line can open some holes. I think they will. And as much as Kalen DeBoer throws the ball, man, I'm hoping he's reserving some play time for the running backs, because there's a lot of talent at the position. You mentioned the receiver position. There's a lot of names. I think there's an opportunity for for 7 guys to catch more than 20 passes over the course of the season. There's an incredible amount of depth. What's going to be interesting is who rises to the top. Who's the number one? The last couple of seasons, that's been the biggest question. Who's the number one back? And it's been a little more of a committee. It's a much bigger, better, stronger committee this year. Name I would watch out for, a couple of names. Jeremy Bernard, he's a transfer from Washington. He was sort of the third guy in the pecking order, at Washington, but they did everything to sort of manufacture opportunities to put the ball in his hands, toss sweeps, end rounds, in the kick and return game. And I didn't know what to expect of him, but during our spring game, we call it A-Day, during our spring game, man, he was lights out. He was incredible, very physical, going up, high pointing the ball, but just very physical, attacking the football. So he's going to be fun to watch. I think he starts out as the number one receiver. We've got a couple guys coming back, Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice, that are going to battle for possessions. And there's a true freshman, and I'm careful sometimes talking about true freshmen, but Ryan Williams is he's supposed to be one of those guys. And the teams, even the veteran, the seniors on the team are like, this guy's special. So I don't know that he starts Saturday, week 1, but he'll play. And by the end of the season, we'll look back and he will have started most of the season. And what's interesting about him is he's 17. He reclassified, so he should be, Friday Night Lights. But he starts this season Saturday at Alabama. And generational talent is what people say. I'm scared of that term sometimes. Sight unseen, but dude's supposed to be really, really good. So I'm excited to see how he plays out.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully he'll be good. And I was gonna say, hopefully he's good and he's not a Johnny Football or anything like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hopefully
it'll be a great week too.
That's right. I hear you. I understand.
So yeah, I guess the question about the receivers I had, you didn't really have any receivers even last year that were really close to 1,000 yards. You feel like there's one guy, like your guy from Washington or someone else that's going to be that, or is it going to be more by committee, you think?
I think it's going to be more committee. There's just so many guys that I think has the opportunity, to step up. Now, if someone gets a hot hand and really sort of steps up, if Jeremy Bernard's, on the field is that much differentiated, or if Ryan Williams really comes on and is all of these things, then, maybe that's a different thing. But I don't think, and I don't mean this as a negative against the room. I don't think there's 1,000-yard receiver, but there might be, 4 700-yard receivers. I just think there's going to be that much production in the room, and there's that many talented guys that there's just not going to be a clear number one. I always want a clear number one. I've been lamenting that the last couple of years, and I'd rather have one than not have one. I think we've got some really talented receivers, and I like this receiving core better than I have the last two. Jeremy Bernard, by the time the season's over, Jeremy Bernard or Ryan Williams will establish clearly a pecking order 1 and 2, and then everyone sort of will line in around that. But it's going to be a lot of talent, a lot of depth. A lot of guys are going to get touches.
Yeah, I was actually commenting to Matt before the episode started. Just in the depth that you all have, I think you've got like 8 quarterbacks and 24 receivers, and it's just like goodness.
That counts all the walk-ons.
Oh, okay.
So that's I give you 4 scholarship quarterbacks, and then it's walk on from there, and then the receivers. I've got 6 that I'm looking at here. I think we might go 9 on scholarship.
Yeah, I was going to say there's several, and I know it's a difference between SEC and Conference USA or wherever the hell we're at right now. But it's a lot different in money and NIL money too. How do you all feel after the NIL thing has gone through, as far as Alabama's concerned?
I think I have 2 sort of competing thoughts. I don't like NIL, but I like the idea of NIL. I don't like what NIL is because it's a pay for play, and I don't care for that at all. That's not the intent of it. But the name, image, likeness. Let someone come to college and do an ad for a car. Everyone sort of picks on the car dealership, but whoever it is, a laundromat, I don't care.
Yeah.
The local restaurant. Let them earn income from their name, image, likeness in a true sort of ad sense, in an authentic way. I'm 100% for that. I have no qualms about that. We have a couple of guys that came up with sort of a little slogan last year and started printing T-shirts, and God bless them. Do that. Make you some money. That's fine. I don't make $1 million. I don't care. But don't come in the door with your hand out asking for money for an official visit, or asking for money just to sign on the dotted line. And that's what it's become. And so to some degree, everyone has to do it, but I don't like that component of it. If it's authentic, let's do that. Let's reward and earning something, but not just as a recruiting vehicle where you're giving money away.
The story I always like to go to is there was a punter who was at UK at University of Kentucky who did YouTube videos and he literally did tutorials for high school, middle school kids to punt, and the NCAA stepped in and said, you got to take it down because you could make money off that.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I go, well, that's not fair. Why is that? He's literally just doing something just to do it. Not really. Yes, he could make money off of it, but he's not necessarily going to make money off of it. But that's something that I'm like, that's not fair. Now the Reggie Bush that gets the apartment and the car and all that stuff, that I'm just like, okay, but there's a line here. But I think and at the same point, kind of like you're saying, I don't want a kid to go from my school to like Alabama and not play just for the NIL.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. It's like
with that.
Yeah, I can't. There was a senator who said it. What's the difference between art and porn? You kind of it when you see it, and
Exactly.
NIL, like being authentic and not. You kind of it by see it. You know when you see it. And gosh, a punter having now if he was making $1 million on a YouTube video because and it came in the form of like one check,
that's a great YouTube video.
That looks one way, but if he's getting nickel and dimes because he's helping high school kids, then God bless him, do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know famously Urban Meyers, and I think Nick Saban came out and said it too. If you think you're going to get 6 figures at Alabama, you can forget it.
Yeah.
Through NIL. And I, good for them for saying that, honestly, because it's a very unusual world we live in college athletics now because of the NIL. But at the same point, it was needed to an extent. But
the NCAA, they were asleep at the wheel. If they could go back in time and just put in a couple of provisions, it wouldn't even be a lot, but just enough to sort of diffuse the bomb, so to speak. Then and once what is it, the Supreme Court, once they ruled like no, then it's like Walmart on Black Black Friday, right? Like
Yeah,
there's no barriers that's going to stop the craziness that's just about
Yeah.
to happen. And then, here we are trying to figure it all out.
I was like, yeah, we're trying to figure it out now because it's become such a wild west as far as athletics go. And it's almost like a centrifugal force, so to speak. Like all of the higher paid athletes, your basketball players, some of your football players are going to get pushed to the higher end of things, and then like soccer players, lady soccer players, softball, some of the baseball players, depending on the school, they're not going to get all that NIL. You're going to have some of those the big three, so to speak, get more NIL than that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Matt, back to your script.
Well, no, I think it's a good time. We've covered a lot. Is there anything, Dave, that you feel like we missed about Alabama we should know? Any final comments before we make some predictions and call it a day?
I'm just super excited about the start of the football season. And, Western Kentucky is a team that we've played not every year, but sort of off and on, through the years. It's, definitely an opponent that I have a lot of respect for. Prepping for, our interview the other night, it's a roster that's just littered with, SEC, sort of SEC sort of residue all over it with transfers and coaches. There's a lot of talent on this roster, and maybe they didn't break through at a program that was stacked, but there's still the talent is still there, and so this team has a lot of talent. I think they're going to be fun to watch. If I could ask you guys a question, I would just ask, how much do you guys hate Liberty? That they come from nowhere.
Oh my God! Yes, yes.
So that's I'm sure
They're
I'm not
so
trying to
nice, though.
poke a wound there, but I look at them like they've kind of come from nowhere, and you guys are in competition maybe to win the conference, and hopefully beat them out. So
well, and it's to add to your point on Liberty. Liberty was frustrating last year because they came out of nowhere, and they sort of ruined our Cinderella dance. Because everything last year, we're like, all right, we're going to go first place. We're going to win it. We're going to do this. We're going to be your six-it. And then they stole it, and they did it themselves. And it was like, you didn't do the dues.
Right. Like, don't you know there's a process to this?
Yes. You're supposed to get screwed out of stuff a lot before you get to do the fun stuff. Go on.
That's right. Kennesaw State, which is just right down the road for me. Kennesaw State, they'll play by the rules a little bit better.
Good. You're listening, Kennesaw State. You better listen. But I mean, at least for Western, being a Western fan, you have to understand that you're not going to get home cooking. We don't get calls at home. We don't get calls on the road. I don't know if it's the red or the black uniforms that get us the worst, because we always gets the short end of the stick on both ends of those. But Liberty is an opponent that I said last year after the game that can be our new rival. We've got the rivalry with Middle. We had a rivalry with Marshall, but Liberty is another one that we could be a rival with, and it would be interesting.
Yeah, Liberty is interesting because they're really nice, so it's kind of hard to just straight up hate the people. I don't know. There's a mix here because there's like religion involved in some of this stuff too. But anyway, I think they're super nice. But like, if you look at the sports and the similarities between the programs, it's like maybe 1, 2, or 3 in every sport is Liberty and WKU are in the top 3. And so it's just like every single sport, every single year, it's going to be Western and Liberty battling it out for the championship. So there's going to be, at some point, we're just going to decide we hate each other. But I don't know if I'm personally there yet, but they're working on it.
I can't speak for Matt, but I feel like, at least as a Western fan, we're like, you suck, Liberty. And they're like, well, God bless you. And I'm like, damn it, you made me feel bad.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But yeah, so the game's going to be August 31st, which is Saturday, 2 days as the podcast comes out. And it's going to be at 7 p.m. on ESPN. So definitely check that out. Check out the Alabama football podcast. Dave, if you will send a link to Matt, I'll get that posted on our stuff as well, so we can kind of loop you in on our stuff and your stuff as well. And you can check out the episode. Yes, we will in just a second.
Final prediction. All right, man. So,
But you can listen to Dave's side of the podcast with Matt. Matt was very intimidated, just so you know, Dave. I always try to embarrass Matt at least once an episode. So, but yes, as far as predictions go, we got to go with our guest first. Dave, what's your prediction for Saturday, buddy?
Pain.
Pain, that's right.
Roll Tide.
I do think I think it's a good game. I'm excited about the start of the season. I think the line that you quoted, 30, 31, I think that's aggressive. I don't think that's I think that's too many. I think Alabama wins by a couple of touchdowns. But I think it's a good contest. I think you guys are able to. I do think, especially earlier, if we caught you later in the season, maybe it's a different thing because I think your offense is going to be clicking. The sort of the dynamic passing game, and our secondary is still going to be sort of getting their sea legs. And so I think you guys put up some points early in the season. There's always opportunities in special teams. So I think you guys are able to make some plays in those areas. I do think just the depth of the roster probably prevails, and I think it's a couple of score game when it's all said and done. I don't think it's 30, but you guys are going to have some big plays and some good moments, and I just think the depth probably wins out before it's done.
Okay. So you're going to go by plus 2 scores. Okay. Matt, what do you got, buddy?
well, maybe I'm being negative. I don't know. Maybe I need to call a little closer, but I try to
think
be
you
fair.
You need to go snort some Hilltopper crack real quick and then come back.
Maybe I'll go down to Adolphus there, buddy.
There you go. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. The old Allen County reference. Anyway,
Yeah.
I gotta get a dig in at Allen County every show.
Poor Dave has no idea. That's where I'm from in the state of Kentucky, Dave. Just
All
so
right,
you know.
there you go.
Yeah. Lower Adolphus. But anyway, LA, the real LA. But anyway, yeah, honestly, like I try to be fair. Obviously a big WKU fan and everything, but I just don't see a good matchup. And I think sometimes, like, if we're looking at score, sometimes it can get inflated at the end. Where you just kind of see a couple touchdowns just come in at the end and just kind of spread out the score. I do think there's absolutely some possibilities that Western hangs around. I just think that there's a few too many question marks. I feel like the strengths of Alabama play well against WKU. And I think Western's strengths are against Alabama's strengths in a lot of ways. And so I've actually set my prediction at I hate it. 45-10 is where I think we're going to be at.
You said 45-10. Okay.
45-10, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Maybe
they'll see this and they'll get excited and they'll win.
Evidently, I was smoking the Western crack because I mean, it's kind of a sweep here. We're all going with Alabama, but I was actually thinking 35-14. I'm going to take the under on points just because I think it's a new system for Alabama. I think, yes, it is a newer system for our quarterback at least, but we do have some seniors in some key places that may be able to win out on some matchups. But I do think Alabama's going to keep it within 3 scores. We're going to be able to at least, score a couple times, but they're just going to be able to outscore us and just hold it there. Now, on the flip side of this, my thought could be that they're going to just run it up and just be like, I'm in the house. This is a new coach. Let's go. But, and hopefully it's not like that, but we'll see. I'm going to go with 35-14 though.
Okay.
Okay. We appreciate
I'm the
you all
negative Nancy
coming
here.
in. Well, I mean, we're all negative Nancy's going to Western. I mean, at least for Western side of things, but to be realistic, I mean, you have to realize that Alabama's Alabama, and they're coming in at preseason number 5. So if you're not in that at least mindset, you should go to a crazy house. I'm just saying. Yeah, come back to us next week and check out the podcast. We're going to be talking. We're going to recap the Alabama game. We will be talking about Western versus who do we have next week, Matt?
EKU.
EKU.
Paul Wells, man.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Coach Wells. It'd be great to get him on the podcast. That'd be hilarious.
Oh God.
But yeah, he used to coach at Western back in the day. But yeah, we're going to be talking Eastern, our old rival Eastern, and be talking about that. Dave, it has been a pleasure, buddy.
Absolutely.
You know, honestly, I didn't know how many roll tides we'd get coming into the podcast, but
I'll give you one on the way out, but I try to hold
there you
that.
go. So we'll be doing that. Check out the Towel Rack for all your latest Western stuff. And if you would like to support the Towel Rack and you can support the RedOut Podcast, you can support us there. But as always, guys, I guess go Tops or roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Tops.
Thanks for having me on, gentlemen. It's been a lot of fun. Hearing some of the stories and talking ball and talking about the game. It's a lot of fun. Good luck to you guys. Again, Saturday, but good luck to you guys personally in the podcast. It's a lot of fun being on with you. I certainly appreciate it.
Hey, we appreciate you too.
Appreciate
buddy.
you.
You have a good one, man.
All right, take care.